All right, greetings everyone, and welcome to the fifth installment of Between Drops, where we tell the stories of the Hormesis community. We have a very special guest for you today for episode number 5. I finally have a guest that's in the same time zone. Good sir, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
How you doing, Ian? Thank you for having me, man. I really appreciate it. I'm Craig Baxter, just another community member. Calling in from Tingsboro, Mass. It's about 45 minutes north of Boston. Um, Been in the community for quite some time. A lot of people know me for dyeing the bands. So yeah, just been around the sport for about a little over 20 years on and off. But yeah, just love paintball and appreciate you having me.
Well, thank you, good sir. I appreciate you taking the time, and it's definitely awesome to have you on the show. So let's jump into this, man. Can you tell us, you were talking about dyeing the bands. Can you tell us a little bit about, is it King's Creations?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead and tell us a little bit about that.
So I'm going to backpedal quick. So dyeing the bands. So I started dyeing the bands with Hormesis bands. Right when I first got into it, I got into Hormesis around the Caduceus series. My wife's an RN. She was working in the ICUs. And, my mother's a nurse. Pretty much everyone in my family is in the medical field. So that drop kind of got me interested. So I started, looking into them. And then I really wanted a Mooner from the Ninja Star series.
Okay.
So it was like purple's my color. It's one of those things where I was like, I want one of those bands, but $800. That was back then.
Yeah.
So my wife was like, hey, why don't you just tie dye one? Now, mind you, I had never tie dyed a t-shirt, anything like that. I had dyed some plastic parts for motorcycles and stuff like that in the past, but never, any fabric. So I had an apprentice and I decided, hey, why not? What do I have to lose? Except for like $200 at the time.
Yeah.
I threw in some dye, took some pictures and posted up in the owners group. And then kind of the rest is history,
Wow.
gave me the idea. I went for it and then it kind of exploded overnight. So I started dyeing, bands. And then back then when the community first started, it was so hard to get them, it's still hard for some people who are newer, but
Hmm.
like back then, like if you weren't constantly on the website, you weren't getting a band. So there were some people that were upset about the dyes at first, but Alex and Oliver, kind of when they first started the project, it was all about getting bands onto heads. So that's kind
Yeah.
of like I took and just ran with it. But back to the KC stuff. So yeah, we started the tie dyes with Hormesis, dyed over 600 to date.
Wow.
And then that kind of just got me interested in tie dyes. Now I dye every day. And then that's not my full time job, just something that kind of kept me involved with paintball. But then another fellow community member and myself, we started, talking. We actually met through Hormesis, and then we were like, hey, let's do something for the community. Let's do band bags. So we started tie dyeing some fabric and making headband bag carriers. This was like before the Emperor's case and the King's case.
Hmm.
So we just started doing that, and then it kind of just evolved from there, and eventually became kind of like a little side thing, a little side art project for us. So James and myself, we started this, and it's kind of just all word of mouth, and we're just making pieces that are unique, something that we enjoy. We have a passion for the art of it, and I'm learning to sew, so it's another cool little hobby.
That's awesome. That is absolutely awesome. How long roughly have you been doing this, like timeline wise, from start?
So I started the Hormesis dyes back in the first year of Hormesis, so like 2020, I believe,
Okay.
2021. But we started KC. It'll be actually a year in about a week. So,
Wow.
but I started dyeing pretty early on. As soon as I pretty much got in, because I couldn't afford the bands I wanted, I was like, I'm gonna
Hmm.
make them, or make something that looks like them. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's the rest is history. Been getting to connect with a lot of people, big into tattoos and like stuff like that, like just getting to know the stories behind tattoos, or why someone wants a band dyed a certain way. I've always found
Hmm.
that thing. So I've got to connect with so many people and make lifetime friendships, and you know I think that's my favorite part of the community is the network, right? Like so many different walks of life, even outside of Hormesis, it's just paintball in general. I've paintball
Yeah,
with lawyers, construction workers, you name it. But we all go to the field and we all just enjoy the game.
that's interesting. And that's what I do currently is I tattoo, and I never thought of the Hormesis bands like tattoos, but it's very
Yeah,
interesting, like it's like a stamp and a passport, it marks a time in history to each person, and it's unique and it has its story. That's a really good way of explaining it. I never thought of it like that. That's awesome.
that's cool. You do tattoos, man. Definitely have to link up at Cup then.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just something that I did when I got out of the military, and um, we've been doing it. I've been doing it for the past, we just hit 10 years of doing
Congrats.
it professionally, and so we've been going kind of back and forth, helping out our family on either coast, and we're settling back out here in Delaware, and we've got a piece of property here, and so we're going to build a private studio on the property here in the hopefully the next 6 months or so. We're kind of finalizing all the blueprints. We had someone come out and do an estimate, so that is a work in progress. But I'm excited for the next steps. We're just going to do something kind of open to the private. I mean, I've been tattooing in this area for the last decade, so I have a good clientele, and it's just kind of, we're getting ready to start a family here down the road, so it's kind of pumping those brakes a little bit and
Yep,
setting the family as the priority and building everything else around it. And so it's very exciting. Yeah, absolutely.
absolutely. And there's no the thing that's funny. I've got 3 kids of my own as well, and we kind of did it backwards, quote unquote, based off how people say to do it. But you know, just enjoy the ride. That's the best thing I can say to you.
Yeah.
Like you're already doing a lot of the preliminary steps that I wish that I maybe could have done, but we did it backwards and it works out. Like there's highs and lows, but just enjoy the ride for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it was just one of those things where my dad, who had just recently passed, he'd been ill for some time. And then my wife's grandmother, who helped raise her, was ill on the East Coast. And so basically we ended up selling everything, getting a Winnebago van, and just going back and forth for the last year. And we're very thankful for the time, because it's just, unfortunately, this last 6 months has been a true measure of, you never know how much time you have with people. And so now that things are kind of starting to um, settle back here on the East Coast, this is where we're going to end up being. And we've got a little piece of property out here. And so it's exciting, but like you said, it's just a process. It
Yep.
really is. And it's just, unfortunately, we had some events that made us downsize and, change some things, but we're really happy with like the minimizing and shifting of the priorities, in order to kind of make room for the next steps. And so it's exciting. Absolutely.
I'm sorry to hear that. He said my condolences to you and the family, but
Oh, well, thank you.
it'll it will work out. Like you said, downsizing, you kind of get thrown for a loop, but you'll land back on your feet. You
Yeah,
got
and it's one of those things where, at times you don't really know, like it's hard to understand what the heck is going on or what the point of everything is. And then, lo and behold, a few months go down the road and something happens like this. And you're like, oh, okay, well, now I see why everything was kind of lining up. And it's just, you never know, truly.
absolutely.
All right. Well, let's talk about you playing paintball. Can you tell us a little bit about your first time playing, how long you've been playing, things like that?
Yeah, yeah. So I know I've watched every one of the episodes. Unfortunately, my story is a little different. So I started in 2000. My uncle, who was a veteran from the Marines, he came to my parents' house and he had stopped at Walmart and bought a Brass Eagle blade. I don't know if you remember
Oh, I remember those of the pump.
big shotguns, yeah, with the CO2.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he came to the house, my parents' house, and my mother's a nurse, and I'll explain why that's important in a second. But my mother's a nurse, and she worked overnights, so she went to work, and now they came over, they're having a few drinks, and they're like, "Hey, I got this paintball gun." So now we're out in the backyard, and I'm 10, mind you, and they're shooting trees and stuff like that, and I'm like, "This is the coolest thing I've ever seen." So I want one, and my dad's like, "All right, well, mind you, neither of these two have been shot yet," but they were like, "Yeah, like, well, you can get one, but you have to get shot first." So, I'm like, "Oh, okay." Like, I'm terrified. I'm 10, but I'm like, I'm gonna do this. I want one of those. So we were like, all right, well, mom's going to work a little bit. So I was like, all right, whatever. So we'll wait till she leaves. So then I went out, it was like fast forward a few hours. And then my uncle apparently during that time, I walked out about 100 feet and my dad's got the gun and he was like, all right, we're going to shoot you. So I got my back turned to him, is what it is. And then it's my cousin and myself standing in the yard. And all of a sudden, the first ball comes by us and we're all tense and we're all like, hands are all sweaty. And then next thing you know, we hear kind of rapid fire. So during that time before, we proposed the idea of getting shot to, the actual event, my uncle had gone back to Walmart to buy a Spider TL Plus.
Oh my gosh.
So we thought we were getting shot by this pump gun. Now my dad's got one, my uncle's got one. They started chasing us around the yard. And yeah, that was it. The bug bit us. And then so from there, it was kind of like I did get that blade. I think it broke probably like the second time we played. But then for the rest of the time, it was pretty much, like that Christmas, I asked for a paintball gun. My first marker was I got the Spider Extra was my first marker. I never owned a Tippmann 98, atypical, I know. So I had the Spider Extra. And then from there, we just, we'd fill up the CO2 cartridges and we'd go out in the yard. So we had the big section of woods behind my house, and then friends would come by, they'd get into it, and then eventually grew into there's a local like waterworks, which is like a giant sand pit near us.
Mm-hmm.
So we fill up a bunch of CO2 cartridges, and then we'd all go out in the woods and we just shoot at each other until there was no velocity readings in the woods. Like shooting 400, we have no idea. But that's kind of how it started. And then so I played from 2000 till about 2009. Just again mainly woods ball and stuff like that. And then I got out of it, went to college, met my wife there, and then I took about a 10-year break, 10-year break, and I'd always peek in to see what was new on the market, but I never played anymore. But then for Christmas, my middle brother was like, "Hey, I want to get my oldest son, who's 11 now. He's like, I want to get him a paintball gun." And I was like, "Don't do it. You know what this is gonna do. We're gonna go back down the rabbit hole." And here we are. So I've been back since 2018.
Okay.
And now with family and everything, I typically play about 2-3 times a month.
Okay.
So we'll say on and off for about 20 years.
Awesome. Now, do you do any like competitive stuff, or do you normally just do walk-on play, or?
So the big thing for right now for me, because of my youngest daughter is 3. So for me, like to commit to a team, I could, but it's just my wife's work schedule, my work schedule. So right now I'm just walk-ons. I'll play tournaments. I'll guest with people and stuff like that. But for the most part, I just do walk-ons and help new players kind of learn the fundamentals. But
Awesome.
Speed, whatever, doesn't matter to me. If you're playing paintball, I'm willing to help.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that's really important too, is just taking the time, because there's so many people that are young, and they want to come play. And I feel like that first experience is so important. If you have a bad experience, you're never going to come back. But if you have the right experience, it hooks you. That's it.
Absolutely. And that's what I tell a lot of the tournament guys. They'll always ask me like, like you can play like on the speedball field with us. And I'm like, you guys have the bug. And like every single time there's a birthday party or a bachelor party or just little kids or anything for that matter, anybody that's new to the field or new to the sport, I'll give them a headband, or, I'll help them. I'll let them use my marker or whatever. Like you just said, like that first visit is really what's going to shape them to come back, which allows our fields to stay open, which allows us to play. So I think that's the key, in my opinion, for, the health of a sport, is to get those new players and give them a welcoming opportunity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love too when like the fields have the upgraded rental packages, like they'll move up to the EMAC, or, something a little bit, I guess a little bit more accurate, a little bit that works a little better. And that way it just helps with that experience. Because unfortunately, you play at the wrong time, your goggle fogs up, you're breaking paint, and it can be just a miserable experience. Absolutely. Yeah. Did you have a dream gun or a grail gun?
So my last marker I bought was the first marker I bought like 100% from saving like lunch money, I'd work and then I'd get cash there, and like, I just saved up all this money. The last marker I got was a Bob Long Protege, and I would say
Nice.
my favorite marker I've ever had, other than my LV2. So I was
Wow.
a Muppet guy, always loved spools, DM6, all that stuff. And then when I got back into the sport, I was like, hey, when we got out, like the DM8 was, or the PM8 was like the marker. And, the Bob Long Protege just came out when we were getting out of the sport. So I like logged on and was like, wow, look at the DM14. So that was the first marker I bought. But
Okay.
to get another marker that would be like a Grail wall hanger would be the Bob Long Protege again.
Yeah. I remember when those came out. I think I was shooting like an Argyle DM7 at the time.
That
And I
was my
kicked myself for giving it up, man. Like, because you can't find them.
no.
I'm just like, why?
Yeah.
And I think I traded it for a Ronald McDonald Bushmaster or
Those
a
are
Bushwhacker Ego.
yep.
And it was a solid gold with the red accent parts. And I
Right.
got
Yeah.
rid of that one too. And I'm just like,
So many come and go.
yeah, absolutely. And I get through my phases. Like early on, I was collecting guns because I couldn't afford a lot when I was a kid. So I got into collecting, and then I get out of collecting, and there's still a couple things that I have, but I don't know. Guns I feel like are hard to collect. I like to play with them too. So it's like I don't want to sit and die. So it's finding that balance of how many can I work through in an actual rotation.
Yeah. My brother's big into the old school markers. He's got PMRs, he's got the original egos and all that stuff. So it's funny because he also has a newer LV, but he'll always, for whatever reason, grab a PMR. Like he just, or like he'll go to the field with his original ego, and it sounds like he's shooting a bazooka. But
Oh my gosh, yeah.
so yeah, the old markers. What was funny was back then, like you went to the store and you bought like new eye covers, you bought drop rags, you bought like you had to customize your marker. So like
Yeah.
it was kind of a cool era when like CP and all that stuff was around.
Yeah. Especially I feel like there was a lot more private label
Yes.
milling, whether it was Smart Parts was doing a lot of private label stuff, Bob Long was still doing a lot of private label. Um, I'd say like around that era, I mean that Smart Parts, that Russian Legion NXT Shocker was probably one of my favorites.
NXT.
Yeah, just that red and black, it had all the rivets and everything. But there were a lot of really cool markers back in that day. The excessive egos. Um, I did like the infamous. I can't remember which version of the SL it was, but it had George Bush with the middle finger.
Yep. So it was it the SL74, I believe, had the Johnny Cash, which is when they remade Infamous, just remade that one. It was either
Yeah.
74, I can't remember, but either way, they had a lot of really really cool ones. I remember the Hurricanes used to have a special SL as well.
Hmm.
I can't remember which one it was, but yeah, I just remember looking at the magazines and like drooling over some of those markers, or going into Paintball Wizards, my local shop. Those guys are fantastic. So like being a little kid and still going to that store, and they're still the same people. Like going in there and be like, hey, can I hold that marker? That's $1,500 back in 2000. Um,
Yeah.
they never bat an eyelash. They're fantastic people. So if you're ever in the area, I highly recommend stopping by there.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've got the same. There was a shop. It was Maximum Paintball, and it's still the same owners, but they do air gun stuff now too. So it's Maximum Air Gun. But yeah, it still has that same thing. Like biggest pro shop. Back when there was a lot of different paint, so they'd have the skids of the paint.
Yeah.
And it would have that smell to it. They had the paintball movie going on. It was
Yep.
a vibe, and it was just like I never had the money to buy anything, but I just like being in there. Hey man, can I see that?
Yep.
Yeah, can I see that too? Yeah, I remember there was what was it, a Gen XE Matrix that I wanted. It was like $800
Yep.
and it was just there was no way. There was no way.
Was like a Dye used to release a new marker every year, and it was like just every single time you go into the store and then you see the PGA colors, or I
Oh,
don't know, so funny. But that Argyle DM7, it's funny you say that because I know one of the questions you'll ask, it will it'll be funny.
we were what was it? The Argyle. I completely forgot what I was going to ask you. It slipped my mind. Yeah, I don't remember. Hopefully, I remember later. Yeah, that was really weird.
Right,
It just kind of like I had this like
right.
I was just like, anyway. I guess we'll keep going. What was I going to ask you? Oh, I think truthfully, some of my favorite markers from that time were the Shock Tech lineups.
Yeah.
Like I'd love to this day, and I don't know that I've ever really seen them resurface. Is the Shock Tech Bushmaster that they had?
Yeah.
Uh,
There was so many, like you said, like there's so many unique markers then. And like it's funny now because like people be like, oh, like the force is heavy. And I'm like, did you ever hold a DM3? Like
yeah, yeah,
an autococker, So it's like I think the heavy thing is kind of comical to me. But back then, like just the markers they had were just wild. Like it's hard to see paintball now. Like how can they get better? Like how can they make a better marker?
yeah,
They electronics, but like back then they just had like a I don't know, a unique touch to them. I liked it a lot. It was
yeah,
cool. Customize them.
yeah. It kind of reminded me of like having a hot rod.
Exactly.
Like it was just the motors were all a little different, the manufacturers were a little different, and depending on how you tuned it would, determine a lot. Your
Yeah.
knowledge on the marker would really determine how much more performance you could get out of it. And it really, really made it a really unique period. And like I said, it's a shame that they don't have, everything's kind of like dwindled down. They have some really great companies now, but I feel like there's not as much uniqueness as there was back then.
Yeah. I think we traded uniqueness for reliability.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely.
Like Mark,
Absolutely.
they'd break down. You'd be like, all right, like I can't play anymore today. Like it's just it's kind of that trade off. But
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, what was your go-to headgear before Hormesis?
so that's why when you said the Argyle die, I thought it was comical. So back into like 2000, 2001, I had bought a 3-piece dye headband, and it was I don't know if you've ever seen like Burberry like clothing. So like
Mm-hmm.
so there was this Burberry 3-piece dye headband that I had bought, and I had also bought like a bandana at that point. This is like back in the day. That was like tan and browns. I can't remember the name of them now, but that was like back when like bandana like you just like someone at the field like knew someone who knew of someone, so you could get one. But
Yeah.
the 3-piece dye headband was like my headband. And then the other day, I've been looking for months, like kind of like privately. And then the other day, my brother was like, guess what I found? And I was like, what's up? And he showed me a picture of him wearing that headband at a tournament back in the day. And I was like, I've been looking for that picture or a photo of that band for months. And then sure enough, he just got one the other day. So super.
Wow.
But yeah, it was a cheap Burberry dye headband. It was and the 3-piece was like 45 in the front. Like it was super like janky, but it was just the best headband I ever had.
Now, back then, was it more style or head protection?
So back then I had hair. So I think it was more style. I think it was more style. Since then the gravity's moved down, so I've got a beard now. But it's funny because back then I just thought it was cool, right? Like the guys, like I remember back then, like Ollie Lang and Alex Frazier and Greenspan and Yosh, and like watching them, they're the same pros when I was a kid watching the sport as they are
Yeah.
now. So it's kind of like comical, and then like meeting them firsthand in person and just realizing like how humble they are. Like they're amazing people, and it's. I hope paintball doesn't lose that. I know we want the sport to grow and we want it to become beneficial for them. Again, like they're traveling the world and they're taking time from their families, but I hope that they keep that humbleness.
Yeah.
I think that's the best part of a sport. You go to the field and you could be a nobody like myself, and they talk to you like as if you're just a person like them. So I respect.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's a really, truly awesome just to be able to have that connection with them. And last year I did the Dynasty Champs Club, and
Yeah,
that was a really cool experience, just to kind of have those meetings with them and kind of get to dive into their thoughts on the game, just because their education is so vast. And so it's interesting just to see them. You're like, oh, I didn't even see that, or I didn't even think of that.
right.
And it's just they have such a vast knowledge when it comes to the sport. It really is, eye
Yeah,
opening when you get to kind of witness what that level is like when they occupy it. It's really cool.
Yeah. So I had also done it last year. And then I was like, okay, like, kind of balancing things out. And at World Cup, I went into the booth and like, it's funny because watching those podcasts with them and like joining the team meetings, like they're all just friends, kind of like beating each other up, right? Like they're joking around. They're, like they're serious, but they're also like just friends, like they're just like they say, like play like a kid.
Hmm.
But then you go to the event and like you could hear a pin drop in that tent. Like at World Cup,
Yeah.
they're very dialed in, but like when they're as soon as that that whistle's over and like the games are done, like they're back to goofing off again. So it's very interesting to see that switch go on and off so well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was in the pits for the Mid-Atlantic event last year, and the same thing, it's interesting. I mean, to just see it on that level, to see that professional level with um like Vic, running the pits and running the crew, and then you have the team on another level, and it's just humming, like
Yep.
a finely tuned machine. And then like even those times, I mean, there were a couple times at an event where they almost got knocked out, and things didn't go their way, and it was real close, and it was just to the very end, and it was just as soon as it was over, it was done, and they're back to, like you said, just all right, cool, left it on the field, we're good.
Yeah, yeah, it's just so cool to see them like that. And I think that's like when I go to the field, I try to do the same thing, right? Like you go out there and you want to be competitive, you want to have fun, but like you gotta know your crowd, right? Like so if you're at the field and you're playing open play with new players, like have that make them have the most fun that they can, right? Like
Yeah.
that you're so like I kind of saw that at World Cup and was like, wow, that's really cool. Like I like how they can just toggle that switch. It was just super interesting.
Hmm. Yeah, that is really cool. And like I said, I feel like there's just magic at World Cup. Like all the videos, they always talk about the World Cup magic, and I'm really excited this year. We should be going. I don't know exactly what day we're going to be coming down, either Thursday or Friday, but we should be there for the majority of the weekend. So it should be a really cool time. So hopefully we'll see the Dragon bring home
Yeah.
another win.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to link up down there. I'm hoping to land Friday afternoon,
Okay.
and be playing Sunday. So
Oh
we'll do
wow. Okay.
so.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely awesome. Yeah, man, I'm pumped. Like I said, it'll be the first one.
Yeah,
First one for sure, but the best one.
yeah. No, it's funny because you get there and it's like, okay, like, do I pay for the VIP section? Do I just sit in the regular bleachers? Like, there's no like agenda. You just kind of walk around, meet people, see all the vendor booths, and then come Sunday, it's like you've seen everything around, so you're like, all right, let's watch some games. So
Yeah,
really cool.
just get it going. No, absolutely. And like I said, it really is exciting. It's cool to see it from the pit side of the view, and then it's really nice to see it on like from the bleacher side. Like I've kind of been there for both events, and it really is a unique experience. Oh, where'd your question out? There they go. Sorry, my computer just like flashed out on me for a second here. I finally got multiple screens because I'm doing video editing stuff, and it's a little bit easier, but sometimes they glitch out and they don't want to work.
Yeah,
Or they're like
that's
flashing it out, and I'm like, what are you
yeah,
doing? You're plugged in. Like, what do you mean?
yeah. That's the same thing at my work. I'm like, I never had two monitors, and then now that I do have two monitors, I'm like, this is a game changer. Like this is a whole different world.
Yes. Yeah, see as soon as I'm like, yeah, you bugger. Oh, don't freak out on me. Okay, settle again. All right, we're good. Yeah.
We're back. We're
It's
back.
like just sitting here, it's like, but I'm
Yeah.
like, what are you doing? Stop being so annoying. Oh my gosh. Okay, let me get I've got your questions up here somewhere. Okay, there it goes. It was on the side. All right, there. Okay, so let's get back into this. So you were a community king last, was it last inductee class?
Yeah. So CK 22. So CK2 or class of 22. I thought that was comical when someone announced that as class of 23. So yeah, CK 22. It was definitely a shock, to say the least. It's a humbling experience. It's overwhelming. The emotions. It's a total roller coaster. But it truly is an honor to see how the way they're doing it. Just anybody, you don't have to be, the best paintballer ever. You can just be, a member of the community doing the right thing, and they recognize it, and it just goes from there. So it was cool, and to be named with a lot of the amazing people that we were, definitely made me feel like, I'm like, do I really fit in this class? Like John was there, and Kevin Yantosh, and Devin Morris, and Ryan Doss. I mean, Scott Dodal. Like there's just so many, and then obviously, I guess we can talk about MSRP, man. He's all right. he's he's one of my best friends. I talk to him daily. He's probably one of the funniest people in the group. He just loves to make waves, but he's a soft. He's a big teddy bear. But there were so many amazing people. The Queen, Kat, like her and I. She's such an inspiration. She really is. So there was just so many good people, and to see them honored really made me feel like as if I was like, okay, I don't belong here, but I'm happy to be part of this group. So
That's awesome. So what was it like to get notified? What was that?
So every year we do a lake trip. The whole family and I, we go up to Lake Winnisquam or Lake Winnipesaukee, and we stay there for a week. And there's no internet, there's no TVs. It's just family, right? So like you're there playing like that. We kind of like take that recharge for a week. So it happened while we were up there. So we're all sitting there hanging out or whatever, and all of a sudden my phone starts exploding, and I'm like, "What's going on?" Like bell, 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 bell. So the Instagram video had went live, and it was like, thank you all, Community Kings, blah, blah, blah. And then all these pictures started going up, but they didn't have names yet. So then they just started posting all the pictures. And then next thing you know, they had tagged my Instagram tag on all of them. And I was like, okay, so I don't know which one's mine. And it was just, I was like, maybe they messed up. They probably didn't mean to tag me, but whatever. And then all of a sudden the messages on Facebook, congratulations, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. But a lot of the CK1 who have become very good friends were like, this is how it goes, like, blah, blah, blah. So they kind of like filled me in on all the details on the fly. But yeah, so they had announced it on Instagram, and then we got an email from Alex about maybe 2 weeks thereafter saying, congratulations, there's one on the way, and you have X amount. So for CK22, the quantities were a little bit lower. They were a little bit higher than CK1. I had 12 bands, so I had the least of our drop, and then I think John was the second as far as quantity, but most people had about 20. So obviously, like I was like, hey, I got 12 bands, like this is going to be awesome. And then the amount of messages for 2 weeks straight around the clock, like, hey man, can I get your code? Can I whatever? Like, congratulations.
Oh man,
there was so many different like variations of very humble people, and then people that were very blunt. So it was like, like I said, it was humbling, but also like chaotic for quite a bit. And then with 12, it was super difficult. You have to think of 12 people that have made an impact on you, or like you've got your family, you've got teammates, you've got friends. So it's super tricky for sure. But I leaned on heavily to Pat McGrath. I know a lot of the other people that have done the podcast, talk about him. He is absolutely incredible. I know everyone knows him for the museum, but in reality, like just as a person, he's incredible, and just does so much for the community, so much for the sport, and he's just so down to earth. He's awesome. So obviously he got CK1, and then I had relied heavily on him, and he was like, listen, write a list, stick to the list, and don't let anybody deter you from it. So I took what he did, because you don't ever see a Woody go up for sale or trade, because if I did, I would spend a lot of money. But he was like, hey, write your list and think of people that you don't think will sell it for a profit, because that was when the market was a little bit different. So I really like wrote the list, and like kept revising it, and then finalized my list, and then basically reached out to those people that I would like to give the code. Unfortunately, I don't have the money to gift all of them. I gifted those that I could, but Basically we did a lot of trading in CK2. So I'd
Hmm.
be like, Scott, do you want mine? Yep. Can I have yours? Type thing. So like we would just trade codes and we both purchased each other's.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
so there was a lot of that, and then finalized the list, and then again I took one out of Pat's playbook, and I only kept one. And it's the one I'm wearing right now. So
That's
uh,
awesome.
no new in box.
That's awesome. Now, can you tell me, how do you feel about the pattern that was selected for you? Talking to Sean, he was like, it feels like it was picked for me, So how did you feel when, that was presented to you as your band?
So when I started, I was like, okay, like everybody knows I'm big into purples and like vibrance, like obviously with tie dyes and stuff like that, like very bright colors. And then when I saw mine, like I absolutely love it, but it's very blank. So it's very earth tone, very white. It's very like pale in a sense. And this one's obviously very faded now, but it's almost completely white with the white
Hmm.
H pen. Um, and then Oliver said, he's like, I did that for a reason because I want you to dye it. So I definitely think, like Sean had said, and a lot of people have said as well, um, they're paying attention. They're very personalized. Um, you know, they do put the homework, they put the effort in, and they do their homework to ensure that you get the one that's right for you. Now maybe they make the whole batch and then they kind of shuffle the deck around, but
Hmm.
I'm super happy with the one I was selected with. And even though the one I was selected with had a lower quantity, I still wouldn't change that. So
That's awesome.
you have
Now,
no time process. Sorry.
oh no, so other than that was actually that you mentioned that was one of the things that I was kind of curious about. I'm like, huh, how much selection do you have? And
Yep.
it's been very interesting to talk to all the different community kings and queens that we've had on so far. Just talk about, yeah, it's just basically, Oliver's paying attention, Oliver and Alex. I think that makes it so much more special. It's just people getting rewarded for just being good people, and just being good community members. And it's awesome. And it's nice to see that recognition go rewarded, because it's just one of the
Yeah.
things you don't really see a whole lot of these days, unfortunately.
Absolutely.
So other than your community band, what would you say is your like favorite band if you had to pick one?
So favorite band that's pretty much been since the start would be the Miko Hutton, which is from the Rapier series. And then also I would say the Copcock from the Knuckle series. Those two are my favorites. They're both like one of three. I think the
Hmm.
Hutton two. Um, and then so like it's bands I'll never get. My favorite band that I would love to get back that I've had would be the B Short. That was number 21. That was actually the first band I ever got, and that's how I met Pat. So that was kind of like my intro to Hormesis.
Oh wow.
So um, that's the one I'd like to get back. And then if I was going to buy a band that wasn't, there's so many that are like in that list, but the Miko was always number one originally. That was the first band that I saw that I was like, I want that. But I would love to have a Woody, love to have Rob Panarella's band, or John Reeves would be another big one I'd love to get. And there's plenty more, but those are the quick cliff notes that I have in my head.
Yeah, and there are some that have hit my top, but it's just like I just wish I had the money. Like there's one of these days I'll have money and I'll just go grail hunting, but it's being selective with the ones that I can wear, it's because I don't everyone I have I wear. Unfortunately I just don't have the collection where I can just set it aside. But I think that's what kind of makes them special too. It kind of reminds me of like martial arts belts, back in the day when they would change color with the use, and
Yep.
the longer it's worn, the more I guess kind of patina it gave it and the more uniqueness, to it. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it has a soul to it. Like I
Yes,
know
absolutely.
a while it was like, okay, like everyone has their dailies, and I definitely do as well. But lately, what I've been doing is I'll wear, you know, one of our KC bands. I only have one KC band, so I'll wear that, and then I'll always cycle through another band. So like, I wore my Sarah Gill the other day. I wore my Montes before. I wore my Chai. So I like to get them all out. I'm a big believer in, don't shelf them.
Yeah.
get the, so, but I love the fade. I know Sarah said she doesn't like it, but I love the.
And it's awesome too. And I kick myself because now like I'm meeting all these people and their bands have all come and gone. And
Yeah,
it's like, like why couldn't I have started this before?
right.
Because now I feel like there's such a different relationship than I did. It's like, oh man, now, I want to get some of those, but it's just,
Right.
oh, that microphone. It is crazy how that all works out.
Yeah.
One of these days though.
Yeah, and that's kind of like I said, what's cool about it, right? Like you make these connections. Like when I was down at World Cup, I got to hang out with Miko, and like I was talking to him at we went out to there was like a Hormesis meetup.
Hmm.
We were at Old Town. There's like a bar over there, so we all met up. And this is for like right when Miko kind of joined back with Hormesis like full time,
Okay.
and we're sitting at the bar, and I'm like, "Hey man, you're Miko." I was like back then, like he was my favorite pro. Like everyone loved Dynasty, and I obviously still do. But like Miko was like my favorite pro, and like he was like, "I can't believe you know who I am." Like like that
Yeah.
he was blown away. So then him and I just started talking, and like it was just so cool to like meet those guys. And I was like, I remember I had a poster on my wall of his PM8. Like there was a pure PM8. Like it was just like I could remember it like it was yesterday. I was like, I'm gonna get one of those one day. So
Yeah. I mean, he was part of that team at the height of the Ironman, and they were winning back-to-back World Cups. And yeah, I've always been a fan of the Shield ever since I was little. And so it's just they've had their roller coaster, that's for sure. But I used to have I wish I still had it, one of their old it was the old Ironman California Shield that had the shoot kill win on the front. And I'm just like, I wish I still had that shirt. But of
right,
course
long gone.
it's gone. Yeah, it's gone to the bowels of history, unfortunately. So, what would you say is your most memorable landed drop?
Okay, you're not gonna like me for this one. So I tried for quite a few drops, but the first drop would be the most memorable for sure. So the most memorable drop was the Golden Gun. So the first band I ever hit was the Jaws. So
Nice.
my mom's favorite movie is Jaws. Obviously, I played 007 on the Nintendo 64. I've had cousins and brothers that are no longer my cousins and brothers. Like we've battled over this, like yelling at each other, throwing controllers, hissy fits. But so I went through those times, so it felt right. So I landed the Jaws, and that was the first band. That was the second band I ever got. I bought a resale pollinator, but I landed the Jaws, and I was like, all right, like I'm gonna wear this, and I was like, I really want to get one for my brother, so he plays the Dorito side for me. And that's where I met Pat and Tyler Hanlon. So we ended up trading. I traded the Jaws, and I ended up getting that B short.
Hmm.
Actually, sorry, I traded the Jaws to a different member who gave me the Mantis and my brother's Exacto, and then I traded the Mantis for the B short. That's what it was. So it was a three-way trade with Pat, who was like obviously like,
That's awesome.
and then Tyler, who's a really good friend of mine as well, and that was like kind of how I broke in. So that's and my brother still wears the Exactos to this day. That's the second Hormesis band I ever died, so he still wears it.
That's awesome. And it's interesting too that you're the second person in a row to mention the pollinator, which has been
Yeah,
very interesting. I think John had mentioned a pollinator as well and coming across it, and he doesn't have it anymore. But it's interesting how it just kind of comes up like different times. Same band in possession. Do you miss get rid of that one?
so the pollinator I bought resale shortly after it dropped, and it was the first band I ever got, and I got it in. And I opened it up. I was like, "This is incredible!" The obviously the appearance of it and all that stuff. Like I was like, "This is really cool." But I was like, I spent a lot of money on this. I feel weird wearing it because I didn't get it on a drop. So I was like, I can't really wear this. I spent a lot of money. I'm gonna put it off the side. So I didn't wear it. And then at that point, I landed the Jaws. So I sold the pollinator for what I paid for it. And then I was like, like is what it is. And then fast forward, I think about a year and a half, 2 years later, I found out who had my pollinator, the first band I ever bought resale. So I got it back. And
That's
then
awesome.
reached out to me and was like, I really, really want a pollinator. So I gave it back. So it's come and gone twice. The pollinators are awesome. If you've never had one, they're really cool. They don't have terry cloth, which is different for some people. And at first, they weren't very well received, but now I would say it's one of the most like slept on bands to date.
Really?
Yeah. So they're because of the embroidery on like the forehead.
Hmm.
Some people like that. But I liked it a lot. It was a super cool cloth, and I loved that they were half and halves. I'm a huge fan of half and halves.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll have to look at that one just to see what, because now it's eluding my brain as to what it looks like.
So mine was blue with white H pattern with gold hormesis in the middle, and had a gold. I think it had I know for sure it had it had a bee in gold, and on the other side it was green and yellow, I think. Or no, it was green. I can't remember what it was, but the tags matched the embroidery. It was just like it was perfect. So it was I had the bee and the hummingbird on mine, but
That's
there was
awesome.
silver hummingbird, silver tag, gold bee, gold tag. So it was pretty cool.
That's awesome. Did you go after anything in the Cagnoni drop?
I did not go for anything. So as I've progressed through, the roller coaster ride and the journey of Hormesis, I've become very selective and more sentimental for sure about
Hmm.
us. I met Rocky at World Cup. If you've never met Rocky, he is incredible. Just his vision of paintball and like how he feels and his passion behind it's inspirational, man. And he's a firecracker. He's awesome. So I really wanted one of them. I like the Wise Master the best, I would say.
Hmm.
Uh, but I'm trying to be responsible.
I hear you, and I was in the same boat, and I'm like, I ended up getting one, because that was what was it? Was it Push where he talks about Doodoo Brown? So I
Yeah.
ended up getting a Doodoo Brown one, and to
Yep.
me,
That
that's
was,
always like stuck in my head. And then the double cheese one, but I don't.
yep.
I don't have a whole lot of yellow, so it's like, you know what? I like the earth tones. I'm like, oh, the Doodoo Brown, yeah.
Yeah.
She's always consistent in pleasing her master.
Yeah.
He's like, yes, don't say that. Women will think I'm chauvinistic.
I love how they do that stuff, right? Like my favorite part, I guess, about Hormesis is how they're like telling that story again, right? Like when Push came out and like Monkey with the Gun and like all these things, like back then, like they were huge. Like they're replaying it, right? Like we're repeating our history, but
Yeah,
like they're in like a subtle way, in a sense. So like I think that's really cool. Like I loved the names of this one.
yeah,
So
absolutely. So what was the
really,
last drop you went after? Or the last drop you landed?
the last drop I landed was the Community Kings this time around, and I landed three of the bands. I purposely bought two of them to give back to the king that was announced. So obviously, as you know, with CK2, they gave us the code so we could control it. And then with CK3, they did a little bit different, right? So with them, the biggest thing that I always said was, I wish people would not gonna like, so like someone lands the drop, and that I liked how they did it, but like if someone lands the drop and you're gonna resell it for a profit, this is the one drop that's a little bit different to me. So I bought them and gave them to them at MSRP.
Oh,
But
okay.
the band that I got from a drop was the Sarah Gill. So Sarah's a great friend of mine, and I was super excited to get hers because I knew there was very, very few on the drop.
I
But
know, and I almost had one. I'm just like, ah.
well, she told me, she's like, there's going to be very, very few of them, and I was like, well, if I don't get one, I don't get one, but I'd love to have one. And I landed it, and then I didn't say anything to anybody because they're like, I really want that one, and I was like, I got it, but I'm not telling anybody.
And she's so awesome too. And I met her. I actually worked the pits with her at the Mid Atlantic Dynasty event, and so I got to know her working the pits. And then it was really cool to have her on the show and got to know her more. I'm like, I missed like it made it sting because I'm like, like
That's like you said, like she's just such a good person. She genuinely is just always like, she just wants everybody happy. She loves everyone.
absolutely,
But yeah, the Sarah would have definitely hurt. But and even her, like I said to her, I was like, hey, I got yours. Is there anybody else left on your list that you didn't get one to? Because I want to be, say there's 25. I want to be number 26. Make sure
yeah,
your friends are covered, and then if there's extras, then I'll take them. So
yeah.
she told me to keep it, so it won't ever leave unless it goes back. That's a
That's
promise.
awesome. And that's what I love too, is just there's certain bands that I've gotten in drops that I can kind of let go, but then there's certain bands that were given to me or they have that sentimental value, and it's like
Yeah.
that's it. They're never leaving.
Right.
Like I got this from so and so, or there was a band that I wore when I pitted at that event, and it's like, oh, well, this was a band for a win, so it's like it's got a little bit of magic in it. So it's you pull them out on certain days, and it's interesting. It's just it's a really unique thing about this whole community, and the sweaty head rags that we all love so much.
Sweat rags. I like that.
Sweat rags, yeah. I think Sean was talking about these. Like, yeah, they're just expensive sweat rags.
Yeah.
You know,
That's what's fun. Some people collect like watches and this, that, and the other thing. And we're always like, why do you spend so much money on a watch? And it's like, well, I spent a lot of money on sweat rags, so I can't really say much.
yeah, absolutely.
Everyone has their, their vice or their niche. So
Yeah.
it's fun.
And of all the things, I mean, I've done the jersey collecting, I've done marker collecting and odds and ends, and these are really easy to collect.
They
They're
are.
easy to collect, easy to store. You could wear them. You don't necessarily need that was a hard part about guns, is if you broke apart on the gun, you don't know how long it's going to take to find the replacement part. But with this, it's just wear, wash, and repeat.
Repeat.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's one of the perks of dyeing the bands is the wife doesn't know if I bought one or if I'm dyeing it for somebody else. So it's, oh, is that it? I use that to my advantage. I'm like, oh, that's someone else's.
That's awesome. That is absolutely awesome.
But
Now, do you only dye? Have you done any of the pullovers or anything?
I have. So obviously with everything ramping up and stuff like that and doing KC and I dye for a few other companies as well. So like Enemy of the State and those guys, like
Mm-hmm.
awesome. If you haven't checked them out, definitely do so. They're just awesome people. So kind of like helping out everyone else. It's been so busy, but I did do a pullover. I actually dyed Sean's wife's pullover. That was one of the first ones I dyed. And then I've dyed a few others as well. Trying to think, I've dyed hoodies, t-shirts. I have a blanket. I bought a white blanket that I was thinking about tie-dyeing, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm also afraid to tie-dye it because then people want me to tie-dye their blankets. But yes, I've pretty much
That's
dyed
awesome.
one of everything Hormesis, including straps.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Yeah, one of these days I need to get some more pullovers, but it's just finding hopefully I don't know, they're always weird. Like you get a size too big and then I swim in it, but then I
Yeah,
don't want to get too small and then never be able so it's a love-hate thing with the sizes. I just hopefully I'm gonna try and maybe try to go to the event tomorrow if I can, but worst case World Cup. And
yeah,
just save up and get a couple things. But yeah, it's just so comfy. Absolutely comfortable.
yeah. This pullovers is definitely all over the place. Like I wear a 2XL jersey, but like those like a medium pullover will fit a
Hmm.
large, but it's like okay, like
Yeah, I have a XL. Like normally I wear a 2XL jersey just because I mean I've been playing since the late 90s and I like everything a little bit baggier, like
a
just how
Jenko.
it is. Yeah, absolutely. It's just it's Bounce City, man. Like I live in Bounce City and it's awesome. And so I'll get last time I think I got an XL pullover. And in the beginning of the day it's good, but then we start playing a little bit and I feel like what's Tom Hanks from Big, I shrank all up and I've got these elephant sleeves and it's not a good look.
That's a great movie too.
Yeah. It's not a good look at all.
It really reminded me of that. That's gold.
Oh man. So what is your most memorable misdrop?
All right, so this one hurts. The J-Rab was the most memorable miss drop. There's been quite a few, but the J-Rab, because of the Sally, that was like the first purple H pattern since the Mooner. So like
Okay.
that I wanted. Like I was like, I need to land this drop. We're out trick-or-treating with my kids, and I was like, maybe because they're on the West Coast and we're on the East Coast, or I'm 3 hours ahead of them. So maybe by the time we're done trick-or-treating, then they'll do it or whatever. But I missed it by about 20 minutes, but I was with the kids and so bummed out. But again, at that point, people would get super upset and you'd see the the owners group, have the highs and lows, and you could see what the demand would be because of it. But yeah, that was definitely the hardest misdraw.
Did you end up getting one after the fact?
Yes. So I ended up, I have a Devastator. So that was given to me by Dalton Gilbert. So Dalton was very active in the community. I'm hoping he's coming back very soon. But Dalton ended up gifting me the Devastator because he knew I was devastated that I missed. And then, but I wanted the Sally, but I ended up getting the Devastator, and it's become my favorite. So I've actually had 3 Sallies, and the Devastator will never leave. Again, like you said, you can't sell a gift. There's
Absolutely.
and there's just a meaning behind it. So like I'm one of those people that if I tell you I'm gonna keep it and you gift it to me or whatever it may be, it's I don't know, that's just good karma, right? Back and forth.
Yep.
So that's my opinion.
There's love in the band, like on whatever level you have that connection, someone put a little bit of love in it to give it to you. And so it's just like, yeah, you hold on to it, or yeah,
Yeah.
it's just, I absolutely agree. And, we talk about it all the time, and just, I'm not one that usually gives away a whole lot of bands, but there's been 2 I've given away, and it's just didn't set out that day to be like, I'm going to give a band to somebody. But it was just like,
Right.
man, like, here you go. This was yours, and it's just, it's interesting how that works out.
No, for sure. And that's just it too. Like, if you have the expendable funds, like absolutely, that's great. But I know I don't. But like I've given
Yeah.
out quite a few, but like I don't make it like a point to be like, hey, I'm giving out bands, right? Like I'm doing it because I want people to check them out or support them or, come back to the field. Like I said, giving them that first experience is super important, so if it's
Yeah.
giving it a small creator band or if it's a Hormesis, whatever it may be, I don't keep track of how many I've given out. It's just every single time I go to the field, I reach in my bag, and if there's someone that's out there that day that I see or someone that's new to the field, I'm like, hey, pick one. Like there was a bachelorette party a few weeks ago, and I was like, pick whatever you want. Like again, they were most of the bachelor parties you'll see like 10 guys hiding in the corner together. These girls were like full throttle,
That's awesome.
it was awesome. So I was like, hey, and one of them even ran the gauntlet. I was like, this is crazy.
Oh, wow.
So it was super cool. But like to your point with the gifting, right? So like Dalton gifted me that Devastator pretty shortly after the drop. And then, that was Halloween of I think 21. And then the CKs didn't happen until June of 22. And as soon as I got my CK, he was one of the first people on my list. So I messaged him. He had been inactive in the group. I said, hey, man, I owe you one. I told you I'd get you back. And he was like, I can't believe this. And he just messaged me a few weeks ago. He was like, getting back, back to playing again, kind of back on my feet and stuff like that. So he's like, I'm going to wear it. So, it's still with him. So I made the right choice.
It's good to hear. That's absolutely good to hear. And, it's funny. We were talking about this on the last episode. And, one of the things my dad told me before he passed was he gave me a pocket knife, and he's like, hey, why you give people knives? It's every time they wear it, they think about you. And I think about the same thing with the Hormesis bands,
Right.
and it's kind of one of those reasons why, like, unintentionally, I hope that every time you wear this, you think about me or whatever the case may be, and think about our bond, or, and so I think that really kind of just makes it special. You never know when you're going to need that little bit of cheering up or a little bit of that, like friend power, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah. And I only know, like I said, I only know Dalton. I mean, I met a lot of the people at World Cup last year, but like I only know Dalton from the community. But like every single time I went to the field, I'd send him a text, like, hey, Devastator's going for another ride. So
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool the friendships you make through it, right? It's
Yeah.
they're interesting bonds for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So what would you say is your favorite part about the Hormesis community?
Right.
I mean, we kind of just touched on that, but I figure we'll elaborate a little bit more.
Yeah. So I mean, ultimately, to me, it's the network. Like you make these friends, and like even at my local field, like I've gone to that local field for the past few years, getting back into the sport, and like there's people that speedball kind of has this like stigma sometimes, right? That like
Mm-hmm.
fields where you don't know the teams that are out there playing rotos or practicing or whatever. Like you're not going to get a spin out there. Like they own the field for that
Yeah.
time. You're not going to get a chance. So it's not always the most welcoming scene. And I don't mean that bad on any field. at all. It's just more of, again, like, they've been doing it for a little longer, so they kind of know they've earned their stripes. But like when I wore my B short to the field, all of a sudden these people that like who normally never talk to you, they would come up to you and talk to you, right? Like, because you had something in common.
Mhm.
So early on, so I think again, the network, the connections you're making, the friendships, like, you know, going to World Cup and playing with so many people that I just met through a sweat brag community, right? uh, but like they've become family. Parker and Mike T and Kevin and Devin and Kat. Like, I mean, the list goes on and on. But like, you've gained friends, and now you've got a paintball family in different states and different parts of the world. Like John Reeves.
Yeah.
A big part of the community and big part of paintball in general. And now I know him because of these. So it's really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Absolutely awesome. Now, do you have any memorable stories?
So I've got two.
Okay.
I've got 1,000, but I wrote down two. So Cup 2022, Mike T from the group, he had made a post and was like, "Hey, listen, I want to pay all expenses for the Hormesis Most Wanted team." He's like, "Who's the community going to vote for to play?" So I was selected for that. So that was my first World Cup, and it was also my first NXL tournament. So I was like, "Hey, like this will be really cool. Like I can't believe I got selected, but I'll go out there and play." And everyone's at different levels and different calibers. But like we ended up like figuring out who got selected, and then a lot of people were like, "Hey, I can't make it," or something came up. So like we, based off the original list, we ended up making it so like we had to play D4. So we're
Mhm.
like, we'll play D4. But most of the people on the team were just like rec players. Like we just all enjoy the community, enjoy playing paintball. So we're like, well, we have to play D4 because of the people on the roster. So we went down there. We went 500. Like we kept saying the entire.
Nice.
We didn't practice. We didn't talk about the layouts. Like we were just like, we also, because of the hurricane, the games got pushed from Saturday to Sunday, I think it was, because there was a day that was canceled. Or so we were like, I was like, oh guys, like let's just hope we don't get that 6 a.m. slot because I'm not a morning person at all. And sure enough, or me.
Bright and squirrely.
So, but like just the bond and the experience, and it was just awesome. And then like we lost the first few points. We were like, guys, listen, we all came down here to have fun. Like we're not expecting to win any. And then next thing you know, we're out there. We kept getting bad calls from on Devin's snake side, but all of a sudden I look out on the field and Woody is running the whole field and hits the buzzer. Dude, it was like the whole pit went nuts. And then the last point of the day, we played veteran militia, and we had Kieran out there with us, and he got a 5-pack. And the whole event, like, the pro field's like pretty far away from the divisional fields, but the photographers, the amount of people that stormed that field when that kid got that 5-pack, and
That's
seeing
awesome.
the veteran militia guys, absolutely incredible. It was just like a magical moment. And like, every one of us was just on cloud nine. And then, Karen was at a 20. It was awesome. So
That's really cool.
he's an inspiration. He's a great kid.
That's awesome.
But the other, I guess, personal experience would be, because not many people remember this. Oliver and Alex sent me 3 blank bands. So this is before CK. This was like pretty early on with Hormesis. They had reached out to me after I'd been dying for a while, and they were like, "Hey," Oliver actually messaged me privately and was like, "Hey, I'm going to send you 3 blank bands." And I thought it was like a dream. Like I thought I like woke up and been like, "He's kidding. Like this is a joke."
Okay. Yeah.
And then, Alex was like, "Hey, here's your tracking." And I was like, "Wait a minute, Alex Frazier is now messaging me. Like Oliver is messaging me, which is crazy, and now Alex is messaging me. Like this isn't fake." So I had full creative freedom. They're like, "Hey, do whatever you want." And then that was right when the OG count came out. I don't know if you know about the OG count. So that's the only. So like the Forester was it was the first 3-piece band they ever made, which was
Hmm.
and then the OG count was the only other 3-piece that they made. So there was only 50 of them. They weren't
Okay.
released to the public, and it's purple. So I was like, that's the band I want. So they open the box when it gets there, and it's the 3 white blank bands, and then there's a Hormesis box in there too. And I'm like, what's this? And I turn around, and it was an OG count. So I was like,
Wow.
at 12. So but yeah, made three drastically unique different dies, and hand drawn art on 3 bands, and then gave 2 of them away as gifts. One on the Spick and Span show, and the other one went to Karen for World Cup 21. And then the third one I still have.
Now, what's the time frame typically on that process when when you decide to dye something? I mean, what's from start to finish, including your concept design? I mean, what would you say you have wrapped into a single band?
So are you saying like for the blank bands? Saying, 1 second. Okay, what's it called? Send a voice now. Hopefully I didn't lose you.
No, you're good. Yep, we're good.
So for the 3 blank bands, you're saying just like a standard like redye.
Yeah, like if you were, or I mean, I guess we could go over that one, and then like I guess the process too, if someone sends you a band and you do a dye, like just to give everyone an idea of how much time goes into doing some of these projects for people.
So like say you were to send is that a ray gun you're wearing? Or is that
It's a troll.
Yeah, so it's the maroon troll. So say you sent me the troll in the mail. It would land to me, I'd reach back out to you. We had talked prior about what your goals were with it, and I'd be able to tell you what the limitations are, having worked on so many, and then be like, hey, this is our limitations, and then like what colors do you want to go with based on what we have. So then I'd color remove it, and then depending on like the indigos in that one, because it's a greener color, that one takes a little bit longer. So the color removal process probably take about an hour, and then it has to completely dry, so on and so forth. And then depending on what we're going for a dye, like if it's a fade, it's a little bit quicker, but start to finish if we do a fade, we do one color, let that cure, do the second color, let that cure, and then I always color lock them before I send them back out. So we're looking at like physical time, excluding curing time, about 4 hours per band. And then like curing time, it's usually about 2-3 days. So with the warm weather now, for us up in New England, it can be quicker because if I can put it outside instead of like when it's -10, because the sun's obviously the best curing agent. But it's usually about 4 hours of physical labor. Yeah. So
wow,
not many people knew it, but even to this day, I don't charge to dye the bands. So I have dyed them all just because people kept messaging me about it, and I was like, hey, listen, just pay for return shipping. That's all I ask. But then there's people, that have had bands dyed and then they've got them back and they immediately resold them. That is what it is. It wasn't ever about me making, money or a name or anything like that. It was literally like I just enjoyed it and had the passion of it. So, but a blank band for those 3, one of them took me over 17 hours.
wow.
So the pattern on it is all hand drawn. So, and only half of the band is actually drawn. So I only finished half of it, and I sent Oliver the pictures and Alex the pictures. And then originally the plan was for me to send all 3 back, and then for them to judge which one they liked the best. And then they were going to hopefully make a duplicate of it, of their of it. But that never happened, but that was okay. And then I ended up, like I said, gifting those 2. And then I still have the one that took 17 hours just for the pattern that I drew on it. Took 17 hours. Then the dyes and stuff like that, it's probably got over 25 hours in it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It depends.
That's awesome though. Just to give people an idea, I mean, it's the same, I think, with any other artwork. I think it's just hard for people who appreciate it to really wrap their head around what goes into that, and obviously you've done a lot and it's taken you a lot to get as efficient as you are,
Right.
And that didn't happen overnight either, so it's really, really cool to kind of just see the process, the creative side of that. And I think it's awesome. Absolutely.
Yeah. Like you said, when I first started, it would definitely take longer. I've a lot of trial and error. I went to a lot of people would send me them and I'd be like, listen, I don't know what's going to happen at first. And now it's like, I can do what I can and can't do for the most part,
Yeah.
because we've dyed one from every series. So,
wow.
Yeah. Including single arrow. Yes, I know.
That's awesome. That is absolutely awesome.
But yeah, it varies. Like I said, depending on what kind of dye you want to. A fade's going to be quicker. like splatters or swirls or whatever that may be, they can take longer. So,
Okay.
but
Interesting.
4 hours, good indicator per band.
So see, people, those are if you're wanting to get something dyed by Mr. Baxter. It's tips. You got to listen to the tips so that way you don't drive him crazy with things that can't be done.
I make a lot of crazy ones, and I'm willing to try anything, right? Like I'm like, hey, I'll try, but if it doesn't work, we went for it.
Yeah.
But you have to get creative when something's pre-sewn. It's a lot more like you're more limited to what you can and can't do.
Okay.
Now that I'm working with like our KC stuff, like we have like I'm making panels, so like I can do different dye techniques, like the shibori dyes and batik or whatever I want to do. So it's like,
Mhm.
and then like even reading into that, it's really cool to see the history of tie dye as a whole. So it's not just always bright colors, So
Yeah,
there is an ancient history to it. So it's really really cool. But
that's awesome.
yeah, you have a lot more variability for sure.
Absolutely awesome. So is there anything you'd like to see Hormesis come out with or a collaboration you'd like to see them do?
So I mean, they've been coming out with a lot of stuff, and they're constantly coming out with more and more, which is awesome. And I mean, I'm super happy for them. Like I said, there's people that have been like, oh, I think they're going to slow down. Like as far as like their demand, it's like it's not slowing down. Like at World Cup or every event, the line's around the corner for their
Yeah.
booth. Like there's so many other players out there that are just learning about them. So um, I tell them, I would say from a business standpoint, stay on the gas. Um, you know, as the journey's kind of gone for me in paintball and just like life in general, like I've always been an advocate for supporting small businesses. So like everything we're doing with our brand is supporting small. Like our stickers are made in Vermont. Like everything's very close and local.
Hmm.
Um, so I hope to see them kind of maybe do something like that. Go back
Okay.
to maybe not like I'm never going to say to lower the quantities. That's just not realistic. Knowing how the process works. Um, would I like to see different stuff? Of course, but I think more collabs with smaller people. I think it shows well.
Nice. Yeah, that would be really cool. Yeah, it's really crazy to see how much they've grown, from
Absolutely.
the very, very first drops. And like I can remember trying to punch in those freaking codes and panicking so bad, and then like you're just like, hands are
Yeah,
sweating, and it's just waiting on the
the
spick and span show. Yeah.
codes were brutal. It was
Oh my gosh, yeah. Cost
because
me many a band.
yeah, the the J rap I believe was like father like son was the code, and I it, um what was it? It was I think it was a license to kill, pistols only in the basement. I think it was for the
Yeah.
job. Like it was like this huge password, and
You're like one letter off, and you're just like,
the amount of people that spelt like was insane. It was awesome.
oh man. All right. Well, we are getting towards the end of our conversation. I appreciate your time, good sir. Truly, this has been an awesome chat. My last question for you tonight is there any advice you can pass on to listeners who may be new to the Hormesis community?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the biggest advice, for me, anyways, is just be you. You know, real sees real. There's been a lot of change in the community since I started. I mean, I remember first getting in, and I think there was only 500 of us. And now the group's at over I think 20,000 people.
Yeah.
You know, it's grown very very quickly, and that's great. But just be real. Like the the problem with I I guess what's happening now is people naturally think that people have agendas, and some do and some don't, and that is what it is. But you know, if you do things for the right reason, you keep filling that karma bank, you're going to get what you want, I guess, in life. I never expected to be a CK, and I didn't do anything any different than anybody else could. So just be you, enjoy the ride, and make some friends, network, play paintball. That's number one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's all I have for you tonight, good sir. I appreciate it truly. I really do appreciate you taking time and being part of the project. And it's really been great to put a face to the name and get to know
Absolutely.
you a little bit better. And hopefully we get to see it cut, man. I'm
Yeah.
I'm I'm absolutely hoping. Like I said, I think we've got everything kind of ironed out. So it's just figuring out what day we're gonna arrive and where we're gonna stay and all that good stuff. But it's looking
Yeah.
like Cup's gonna be a go.
Yeah. I said I got to book my flights. My hotel's already booked, but I hope to see you. And like I said, I really appreciate the opportunity to sit down and talk with you and get to know you a little bit more. And um, keep pushing this, man. I really, really enjoy it, and I'll be there to watch for every episode for the future.
I appreciate it, man. Is there any shout outs you want to give before we head out? Where can they find the King's Creation stuff? And do they
Yeah.
just how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah. So King's Creations KC for short. We have a Facebook page right now. We are working on a website, so that will make things a little bit less medieval. But the drops right now are literally a tip system. The support's been overwhelming. So thank you to everyone who's been a part of it. Domology, Devin Morris and his group. Like support the small creators. Support Alex and Oliver. Support everyone. Just support paintball in general. But
Absolutely.
you know, for the KC stuff, check us out on Facebook. Shoot me a message. I'm not a stranger. If you need help with a drop, you need anything, I'll be there to respond to you. And James as well. So James is my partner as well. And you know, we're just creating pieces that are unique, just like the rest of us out there for paintball. So yeah, we're here.
Dig
But
it. Well, awesome, man. Well, again, thank you so much for taking the time. I truly appreciate you spending the time with us. And I'm super excited about this episode. So I'm going to probably get it out first thing tomorrow morning. So,
no
um,
rush.
and we'll get this thing out and pumping. But again, thank you very much. I hope you have a wonderful evening, good sir. And have a positive and productive weekend, man.
You too, man. Take care of you.
All righty. Have a good one.
Bye.